What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have yet another album review for you, and one that I've been looking forward to because this band is just flat out fun and just grossly entertaining to listen to. We are going to go over the latest offering from Vulture, Sentinels. This comes out also on the 12th of April on Metal Blade Records. This band formed in 2015 in Germany. This is their fourth album overall. I got into them with their second album, Ghastly Waves and Battered Graves. I remembered actually seeing some YouTubers talk about this band. This is actually probably before we started the channel. I was like, this band sounds cool. And I checked them out. I was like, no, yeah, this band is cool. So I ended up getting, all the other stuff. And we actually went over their third album, Dealin' Death, when that one dropped. And that was an absolute blast. So I was reasonably sure this one was going to be a blast too, because this is just flat out old school speed / thrash metal with a giant hard on for the 80s.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so much so that when I started this album, I had to double check and make sure I was playing the right album, because I heard something that came out 30 plus years ago, 40 plus years ago. I can't believe I'm saying those words, but yeah, I was convinced that I had something else on.
Yeah, this album sounds as old as us, but it's a new band playing a retro style to almost perfection, like down to the vibe, tone, atmosphere. Even the production, like as soon as you hear the opening riffs on Screams in the Abattoir, it sounds, again, like an 80s album. Like It has that sort of like analog sound, the crispy kind of like, 80s guitars where you can like make out every single pick stroke, and these really cool reverby drums. Like the turnovers, as soon as you hear them, like you should get like some nostalgic vibes of like Judas Priest and Iron Maiden.
Oh, 100%. Right, starting at that very high tempo. Yeah. Like, I've never heard this band. I wasn't in on the review, but the funny thing is I have heard this band. I mean, I haven't heard this band, but I've heard this band.
Everything about this band is very classic. Like, if you were a first-time listener, you're definitely going to pick up stuff that, if you listen to 80s metal, that you will definitely familiarize yourself with. And it is so gloriously fun and over the top. These guys find such a great balance between like really aggressive, fast, thrashy riffs, and then just those amazing soaring guitar harmonies and melodies that you would associate with like the classics. Iron Maiden, Angel Witch, Diamond Head, throw in a little bit of Scorpions for good measure. But it's that sort of fun blend with their sort of spooky 80s slasher movie sort of vibe. Like, this band sounds like they'd be the band playing in a club during an 80s slasher movie where the girl's looking around like, the killer could be anywhere in the crowd, I don't know. And the band's like, drink beer, hail Satan, let's go. It's that kind of band. And if the music is not enough to cement that vibe, you have the vocals. The vocals are absolutely amazing. This guy's vocal flips between raving lunatics screaming to giant 80s wails. It's amazing how he flips this on and off. Like, you honestly can hardly tell when those wails are coming. Like, sometimes he just surprises you.
You mentioned it earlier. It's when the song transitions. It's when it cuts to the lead or it cuts to a really cool harmony. Vocally, he sets it up. It just goes from yelling to a really high-pitched scream that I'm not going to do because my pants aren't tight enough. But you get the idea, like, and it comes out of nowhere most times. Like, because you don't know, because you haven't heard it. You haven't heard when the song's going to transition, but it's almost like he alerts you to what's coming next.
Yeah, like generally you get like a dip or a laugh, and then all of a sudden a giant 80s wail. And this dude can do it all. Like, it doesn't sound as though like he's just like, yeah, I'm just kind of goofing around. He has an amazing range, and where these flips come in, it's some serious vocal calisthenics. And especially with as fast and as aggressive as this album is, like, most of these songs are barn burners. Like, fast, thrashy gallops, machine gun riffs. The first two tracks in here, Screams of the Abattoir and Unhallowed and Forgotten, are just flat out vicious songs. There's no real stop to that thrashy gallop. You got like back and forth leads, crazy bass work that's underneath all the riffs.
Yeah, dude, the bassist is on it. In Realm of the Impaler, that little bass run he does is sick. Reminds me of Maiden.
Yeah.
Flat out.
I mean, when the bass is very prominent and there's a lot of like heavy metal harmonies on top of it, it's like, yeah, no, that's very Maiden. But
See you.
specifically, like, older Maiden, like, I get a lot of, like, Killers vibes. Like, even right down to the production, like, it sounds like a, like, new album throwback to, like, actually, like, 81, 82.
I was born in 81.
These guys weren't.
Good night.
They're much younger than you, I'm sure of it.
I'm sure they are. I'm sure. They probably are.
And this album covers, like, a lot of, like, cool 80s tropes. Like, again, you have, like, more thrashy, more vicious songs. You have the more anthemic ones, like the last track, the title track, Sentinels, Heavier Than Time. I mean, it almost kind of runs like a big arena stomper from, like, Judas Priest or Accept. Like, I got balls to the wall vibes on it. Like, that riff is kind of balls to the wall-ish. But this band is just sort of fun, and they like to kind of, like, turn things on its head every now and then and kind of surprise you, because there's a really cool build-up to the lead section, which this band loves leads and lead harmonies. They are all over
And
this
they
album.
do it so well.
Oh, they're great. But where the lead harmonies come in, it's ascending, it's very grand and epic, and you're kind of, like, just waiting for this big, sort of, like, epic lead breakdown, and then a disco rhythm comes in behind it, and it just sort of, like, puts this little boogie behind all these cool lead trade-offs. And honestly, it was a lot of fun, especially knowing, like, metal's hatred of disco.
Oh yeah, we're talking like full-blown bush light bandanas, feathered hair, and then a moment with the isolated bass, and the guy comes out with a bullhorn and yells at everybody, and people are flashing their titties, and yeah.
80s.
Yeah.
It's weird, though, that moment is followed by probably one of the singular heaviest moments on the album, too. Like, this big, you know, heavy, lumbering riff behind it. It's one of the slower moments on it. It's more sinister and dark. And while a lot of this, I feel like, has kind of like a lighthearted, like, again, like, cheesy 80s slasher vibe. Like, you know, the kind of 80s slasher you watch where, like, I'm not really scared of this, but I am grossly entertained. And look at all that fake bright red blood. Like, that's pretty much paint. There's, like, a 2-part song in here about Dracula, Transylvania and Realm of the Impaler. And it's just gloriously campy fun with great gallops and riffs, and again, those awesome bass lines on it. Flashy Iron Maiden harmonies, but it never feels like sinister or like actually scary. But there are some moments on here that do get a little bit more ominous and dark. It kind of makes like a good contrast between like all the campy fun to the more sinister, ominous stuff.
Yeah, really. Songs like Gargoyles, first of all, that song is probably the heaviest song on this record, but the more mid-tempo approach that they take to things and the riff that they choose, most of that song sounds notably darker and more sinister. The same can be said for songs like Draw Your Blades. It's got a really cool slow gallop section in it where everything's a little bit deeper. And even Where There's a Whip, There's a Way. That, after it gets through the crooning, dreary harmony section, is also a lot heavier and darker.
Yeah, that song opens up kind of like old Metallica, like, you know, somber harmonies, like, I don't know, something off of like Ride the Lightning.
Yeah.
But the pre-chorus riff, man, that is just a nasty riff. Part of me kind of hoped when I saw the title of that song, because I was a kid of the 80s and I watched a lot of like dumb cartoons, and one of those dumb cartoons was the Rankin Bass Return of the King. The Hobbit's awesome. Return of the King's a little dumb, but there's a song that the orcs sing called Where There's a Whip, There's a Way. I was like, please let them do a campy cover of that song. And then maybe follow it up with Down, Down to Goblin Town. Because,
down to Goblin Town.
yeah, if you know The Hobbit, you know that song. Like, it's probably been stuck in your head for years, just like it's been stuck in my head for way too many.
And now it's stuck in mine, so thanks.
It's because your brain went down to Goblin Town.
I've been down to Goblin Town, let me tell you what.
It's not nice there.
It's not.
It's like Detroit, except with like fangs and horns.
I blame 100 milligram edibles.
Or there's even some songs that are just like notably more aggressive, like instead of being sinister or spooky or more melodic, they just kind of go for the throat in terms of like just a more punchy, kind of violent sound, like Death Row or Oathbreaker. Oathbreaker sounds a lot like Exodus. In fact, I think the vocal lines are almost spot on with Paul Bailoff's for Bonded by Blood.
They're really, really, really close, because when he mentioned it, I started kind of singing it all in my head, and I was like, whoa, that vocal cadence is close.
Yeah, but at the same time, I was like, man, you know, if Paul Bailoff was a better singer, like I love Paul Bailoff, like one of the best frontmen in thrash, But if he was a better singer, I feel like this is probably what he would have sounded like. If he could have pulled off those wails, because he's got that sort of like snarling, maniacal, kind of threatening sound. I think he would have sounded a lot like this guy. And again, I like that kind of old school, just very organic, thrashy punch. Like, all the thrash metal that this reminds me of is like thrash metal more in its infancy. Like, it's not anything you would hear like later in a band's career in terms like an 80s thrash band. Like, this wouldn't be, you know, like Overkill in like the late 80s. This is like infancy Overkill back when they were young and full of piss and vinegar instead of old and still remarkably full of piss and vinegar.
Right. I was wondering where you were going with that. Like, wait a minute. Overkill still sounds like Overkill.
Yeah. Blitz don't quit.
Older. Yeah.
And while there's like a ton of melody on here, you know, just the harmonies and the awesome lead work across the board, and even some of the choruses, like some of these choruses are really catchy right away.
Anthemic.
Yeah. There's like a more tender moment on here with the kind of instrumental. Like, there are some vocals on it, but I think they're just sort of humming along. Forgive me, it's in German. We're going to try this. Der Tod trägt schwarz Leder? Maybe. I said that wrong, right? Maybe. One of those. Either way, it is the most ballady of all the songs. Like, at least the first half of it. Like, it has a very soft, kind of haunting beginning. There are some, like, haunting, what I assume might be female vocals.
It sounds like it.
It could be. Then again, at the same time, it could be just, you know, the frontman with the filter on his voice. Dude's got an insane range. I'm not putting it past him. Like, I'm not going to say he can't do it because I feel like I'd be proven wrong really quickly. But the song has, like, sort of a moody, somber, kind of ghostly vibe. It's, you know, a more tender moment from a band that sounds like they've just, like, destroyed whatever bar they've played in. But it does eventually kind of get into this, like, more anthemic instrumental section. Like, just a flat-out 80s rockin' riff. Great leads on top of it. And that kind of captures the entire album. Like, a lot of this is just riffs, finding those killer melodies, and just kind of having fun. There's like a loose, fun vibe to this entire album. My only knocks on it are minimal, just because sometimes I feel like they get a little close to maybe some of the source material. Oathbreaker having sort of like that Exodus vibe in terms of the vocal cadence. Like, it is very close to Bonded by Blood. Draw Your Blades, which is another banger on here, just flat out riff after riff. The opening riff to it, and kind of one of the main riffs to it, sounds a lot like the main riff to Set the World Afire by Megadeth. Not a bad riff. The title track definitely has that balls to the wall vibe, and man, I got a lot of King Diamond love on Gargoyles as well. But at the same time, like, none of it feels like directly lifted. Like, if anything, it might be a subtle homage, or they're playing within a very specific era of music. Like, again, I don't think much on here in terms of style goes past 1985.
Yeah, as far as negatives for me, I really don't have a ton of them, and it's mostly because this just reminds me of very early 80s. Although if you've watched, you know, my introduction to this channel, you know that I wasn't brought up in a home where music like this was allowed, but at the same time, I remember being a little kid and flipping through the radio stations and coming across early thrash music, and although I wasn't into it at the time, for some reason this just harkens back to me being like 6 or 7 years old, and that oddly enough hits a chord with me, and I don't know why that is. The same can be said for the vocals in this band, because admittedly I was not into vocals like this with all the high-pitched screams and I just thought it was kind of stupid, you know? But then as I progressed as a music fan, most notably because of this channel and the work we've done here, after I got through things like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and Exodus, and, you know, that, like, the vocals really kind of sing to me now too, and I really enjoyed it. Like, I found it to be grossly entertaining. Like, there's just something about that over-the-top, high-pitched scream that just does it for me, and it makes me more excited now than pissed off. So
honestly, his vocals are like the crazy conductor for this entire album, and it's like the icing on the cake, because everything else in here I think is done so damn well.
So overall, I'm gonna give this record 4 stars. I found this to be very entertaining. As I've said, the riff work is amazing. I'm hoping that the actual record, when it does finally come out, because we got this off of a stream on YouTube, you know, I'm hoping when the actual record does come out that there's a little bit more volume to it, because if there's not, that could be a gripe. But yeah, 4 stars. I really felt while I was listening to this, like I should have tipped the rim of my hat up and feathered my hair a little bit and got some high tops with some neon laces in it and some bush light and just see what happens. Because that's how this record makes you feel. There's nothing real modernized in this album at all. Even down to the recording, it's almost like you could hear the hiss of the cassette tape. And maybe that was the point. But the riffs are awesome. The vocals, again, over the top, grossly entertaining. The harmonies on here are delightful. Not only is the lead work awesome, but every time they harmonize it, it gets you. It gets you right in the 1980s. If you're a fan of bands like Old School Maiden, Old School Priest, Old Slayer, early Pantera, definitely early Exodus, Metallica, Megadeth, things like that, you're probably really going to dig this. I would highly recommend it. It's just a good time.
I'm going to go with a 4 as well. Me being a fan of just fun retro 80s metal, it's hard for this one to miss, especially with the fact that it's just sort of a blend of, again, that thrashy aggression and just classic new album harmonies and just crazy vocals. This album is a flat out party. This is a night of beer and pizza and cheesy 80s slasher movies, flipping through Fangoria magazine. It is that sort of vibe. And it's just endearing fun. But beyond that, it is just really well executed. The riff work is tighter than hell. The leads are great. The harmonies, I'm a sucker for classic 80s heavy metal harmonies. Those sing to me. I love the drum work. I think the production here is fantastic, especially going for this retro sound.
Mm-hmm.
You get legit retro recording on here. It even fooled him.
It did.
He thought we were listening to an old school 80s album because it sounds the part. And I don't know, that's another level of appreciation in terms of really committing to this style. They made this sound like it was legit locked in a time capsule. And within that time capsule was probably also an old school Nintendo, some Dayglow, jacket or something like that, and a He-Man action figure. All of those things. It's just got that gloriously fun 80s vibe. And yeah, if you're a big fan, again, of Judas Priest, Angel Witch, probably a little bit of King Diamond and Merciful Fate too when he gets spookier. A lot of this, it kind of sounds like Slayer if they were deciding to just do a jam session of Iron Maiden circa Killers, or Judas Priest circa maybe British Steel, maybe even Stained Class.
Maybe.
I don't know. It's classic bands that like classic bands. That's the vibe. And that's kind of the thing I like about speed metal. It's sort of that balance between thrash and heavy metal, and this band does it so damn well. If you're a fan of anything gloriously over the top 80s in terms of metal, I strongly recommend checking this band out, and check out their earlier releases too. All of them are good. I want to see this band live.
No shit.
Really bad. I have a feeling this band would be an absolute blast live. But for now, I will settle for this new album and all the ones I already own. So yeah, just check them out. So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon if you'd like to help us out there. There's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there. It is also on our channel up in the banner in the bottom right-hand corner. But if you're looking for Thralls Metal stuff, you have to go to thrallsmetal.com. We have t-shirts both old and new. The older ones are discounted, provided we have your size. And we even have hats too, so if you're looking for any of that stuff, click the link down below.
And last but not least, here comes the awkward thank you part of the video, where we thank you. Thank you. We mean it. We do. When we say thank you to you guys, we appreciate you guys who have subscribed and continue to check in with us and comment and share and like and all the wonderful things you do that help make Thralls of Metal, what we do here, pretty much worth it.
Yeah.
This would just be a couple dudes sitting around bullshitting, talking about metal like it was much before we turned on a camera. And while that was cool, it's way cooler to be here doing this for you guys. We've got album reviews coming, discography rankings, states of metal, a whole bunch of crap that we just continually pump out and you guys continue to watch, and we appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, and as far as like any other future endeavors, by the time you see this, I should be back from Philly.
Maybe.
But the next step is Maryland Death Fest, and I believe we're going to be doing a stream at some point with some fellow YouTubers talking about what all we're going to do there, because we're meeting up with a bunch of people.
Yep.
And it's going to be an absolute blast. But yeah, for now, I'm just going to thank you one more time, because you guys are still really, really awesome. And we will catch you later.